Gut shot on the river. Man, why can't I find success at poker? I mean, I've studied all the courses, memorized all the charts, read all the books, followed all the greatest vloggers out there, but I'm just not finding success at poker. You should check out Rad Poker. It's a free app, both free to download and free to play, that provides you with fast-paced heads-up challenges, help improve your poker game by providing you with a rating system. The average match lasts about 4 minutes, so this is a great product to use when you want to play poker but don't have the time to put in a 20 or 30 minute session. Improve your rating as you compete to be one of the top players and the chance to earn a staking contract in the 2021 World Series of Poker.
Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl, and this is going to be episode 70 of my poker vlog. Today I'm going to go over all the hands from my last 2-5 session at Orange City Racing and Card Club. I have a bunch of hands to go over, so we're just going to get right into it. First interesting hand. I'm under the gun with Ace Queen of Spades. Definitely gonna raise this one up even from under the gun. I make it $20. Well, 3 players decide to call, so we're gonna go 4 ways to a flop.
What if the actual home doesn't qualify?
Of Ace 6 Deuce Rainbow. 1 spade. Definitely a board where I'm happy to c-bet small. I would do this with my entire range. That includes all my Ace X's and pocket pairs to remain balanced. So I bet $30. Under the gun +1 decides to call before the button raises to 95. Not really a spot where I'm going to go away too often. There are plenty of turn cards that can improve my hand. Any spade helps me continue. This raise doesn't even have to be from a hand that's better than mine. This could be from a hand like Ace 8 suited that's trying to figure out where they're at. So pretty easy call. The under the gun +1 player decides to call as well. Building a pretty big pot. So we're still 3 ways to a turn card, which is the 5 of spades. Absolute excellent card. Definitely one I can continue with. I check it to the button who took the betting lead, and this time he bets 160. After some thought of my stack, the pot, and the player to act behind me, I think that there's only one move I can do here, and that's go all in. I do this for a few reasons. One, there are some better hands that may fold. Maybe if the button had like Deuce 6 for some reason, or Ace Deuce, he might fold. I want to get all the money in now, because if the spade comes, I might not be able to get all the money in on the river. There are some 2 pairs that might fold to this raise, as well as maybe Ace King, played kind of weakly from the button. When you turn 9 nutted out, sometimes you just gotta go for it. And finally, I think my opponent could still call this bet with like Ace Jack, Ace 10 as well. So there's actually some worse hands that could call anyway, but regardless, we're all in. The under the gun +1 also goes all in, which I wasn't quite expecting it out of this person. And then the button tanks for a long time. He thinks for over 2 minutes, literally. And my under the gun +1 opponent says he has 5-6, so not the greatest situation. So yeah, this is pretty bad. I was not really expecting this opponent to call. Wasn't expecting to have the 2 pair that he has.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance!
But I guess we'll take 17 outs once and bink the grossest one.
And if you have 5-6, I just counterfeited.
Call an ambulance! But not for me!
This hand is even more interesting because the button showed his neighbor that he folded Ace Deuce. So it's your classic worst hand wins, best hand folds, middle hand pays all the money. You know, that's just poker. Next interesting hand. With 3 limps to me, the small blind races to 30. I'm in the big blind with ace king offsuit. This is a pretty good 3-bet candidate. You need to have some good hands in your calling range. And additionally, I prefer to do my 3-bets when I'm in position rather than play the entire hand out of position if one of the limpers decides to call. So we'll just call this one and under rep our hand for now. Well, 2 other players call, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of deuce, deuce, 3, rainbow. On this board, the small blind leads out for $30. An extremely weirdly small size. I think this opponent's pretty face up that he has ace, jack, ace, queen, something like that. So I'm going to raise this one for value, as I actually should have the best hand here most of the time. No one should have really called with a deuce or a 3. So ace high should be good here. I raise to $110. It folds all the way to the small blind, who decides to call. Not too happy about that. Now I think he's closer to 5s, 6s, 7s, something like that. So praying for a high card on the turn. It comes the king of spades. Absolute dream turn card. Now we can go from bluffing to value betting. When he checks to me, I'm thinking of an amount that can get a good stack to pot ratio to get everything in on the river. Getting paid by all his medium pocket pairs and maybe a float with king, queen, something like that. So I announced $200.
200?
And my opponent throws his chips into the middle before I've even grabbed my chips to move forward. Well, that's kind of a tell. That's a pretty strong call.
Explain why you were doing 61 in a 25 zone.
That's pretty much always nuts or air, and the air being like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of spades that drilled a strong draw and wants to see the river. But regardless, we're heads up to a river card, which is the 10 of clubs. When my opponent checks to me, I eye up his stack, thinking if there's any way I can get a better hand to fold or a worse hand to call. I think all 2s are going to call any size up to and including a jam, and I think anything 5s to 8s and 9s are going to fold. If he has 10s, it's a snap call. So we'll take our showdown value. We'll check this one back. And my opponent rolls over pocket 3s. So
I don't win a lot.
chose a horrible time to raise bluff on the flop and got an unlucky turn to cost me a little bit more money. Next interesting hand. I'm under the gun with pocket 10s. Definitely still in my under the gun raising range. I raise to $20. I get 4 players call, so we're going 5 ways to a flop.
5 players.
Of 10, 9, 7, rainbow. As I flop top set on an extremely connected board, when it's my turn to act, I have to think about a sizing to put out here. Definitely want to begin to build a pot. However, I proceed cautiously because usually when players are drawing, the size of the bet matters very little, especially on the flop bet. So the goal here is to bet 1/3 pot flop and up to 65 to 70% bet on the turn, as long as we get a safe turn card. So with that line in mind, we bet $30 and we get 3 callers. I'm hoping for an extremely low unconnected card on this turn. And the dealer puts out the king of clubs. First glance, I'm like, okay, that's good. That's unconnected. Not quite low. As I'm thinking about how much to bet, I realized that the obvious jack queen just got there, as well as the fact that any of these callers could have jack 8 already. So we decided to check here, try to get the showdown as cheaply as possible. Well, it checks all the way to a middle position player who bets $125. For that price, I'm definitely going to call, even if I'm against a straight. I have decent odds to hit one of my 8 full house outs, so we're definitely going to call this one. Unfortunately for me, the under the gun +1 player raises to $325, and then the middle position player goes all in. So this is a extremely frustrating turn of events.
Oh, God, that hurts so much.
It's obviously one or both players are repping a straight. For this price, I don't think we can continue and chase a full house, and we let this one go. Get to see a run out. River card does not pair the board, and 2 different people had queen jack offsuit. So yeah, unlikely to get either of those hands to fold on a flop bet. Even a bet of $80 to $100, they're likely going to call anyway. And then when the king comes, the same thing happens. I check, call a bet, And then because I've inflated the pot, I would actually pay more on the turn than I did in this particular circumstance. It's just hindsight. Pot control can help save money when people are going to call no matter what, and the runouts just aren't going your way. Next interesting hand. With 2 limps, the button raises to $30. I'm in the big blind with pocket 8s. After the small blind calls, I'm definitely going to call it a set mine, and hopefully all the limpers call as well. And they do. So we're going 5 ways to a flop of King Jack 8 Rainbow. What a dream. I consider donk leading at this board, but I think it's highly likely that since the button was a pre-flop raiser and there's a king and a jack out there, I think if it's checked to him, he's likely to fire at this a high percentage of the time. So a check raise is the option I choose to go with here. I check before it gets to the button. The under the gun player leads out for 75 and it folds to the small blind who calls 75. Well, this is going fantastic. Now the check raise can be sprung and hopefully we can get some stacks in on this one. I raised to $225. Only the under the gun player calls. So once again, dealer, can I please have a low unconnected card on the turn? Nope, the turn is the 9 of diamonds. Not the greatest card because I think Queen Jack would play this way a lot of the time for my opponent. On this specific board, when I was pushing the action the way I was, I think this is a pretty standard jam spot, especially because the 9 might entice King Queen, Queen Jack, Jack 10, maybe even 10-9, who all now have a pair and a gut shot to call an all-in as they picked up equity. As well as the hands that he could still have, King Jack, Ace King, maybe Jack 9. There are many hands that I'm well ahead of that would also call a jam, so with my opponent having about $500 left in his stack, we're definitely going to go for all of it. But unfortunately on this one, my opponent folds. Alright, right now, I would greatly appreciate it if you went below and hit the subscribe button for me. It helps out my channel a whole bunch, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Next interesting hand. With 1 limp to me, I'm in middle position with pocket queens. I raised to $30. It folds all the way to the limper, who is the only caller on this hand. So we're heads up to a flop of 9-4 deuce all spades. When he checks to me after a quick spade check, which I hate doing in the middle of live play, but I have to on this hand. So after we confirm that we have the queen of spades, this is a pretty easy c-bet spot and reevaluate based on turn cards. I bet $30. My opponent calls pretty quickly. He's been sticky with some pretty weak holdings in the past, so prepared to fire again on most turn cards. The king of clubs is not one of those, not only because it's an overcard, but because my opponent would happily call a flop bet with the king of spades, specifically. So when he checks to me, going for a smidge of pot control, can bet small for some thin value on many safe river cards. The river is the 5 of spades. So I think I can bet $50 to $60, maybe $75 on this river card. But before I get a chance to, my opponent snap bets $275. Yeah, the old don't even count snap bet 2x pot is, it's pretty nutted in lower stakes games. If this guy happened to be able to do this with a bluff, he could be the best poker player ever. But I pretty much snap fold the queen of spades face up, and he's very mad and disappointed showing the ace of spades, wondering how I could possibly fold that.
Could you pay me in advance?
You serious? Pay for what? Standing there?
Sometimes you gotta be disciplined, and saving money with the big laydowns is more important than keeping a perfect non-exploitable range. Especially when you're the one doing the super exploitable folds to your opponents. Next interesting hand. The very next shuffle, I am under the gun with pocket 9s. I make it $15. Under the gun plus 1 makes it $60, and the big blind decides to call the $60. Not really gonna fold pocket 9s to just a 3-bet. Plenty of playability and likely the best hand if there's no aces or kings on the flop. So I call. Flop is 8-7-5 2 spades. When it checks to me, I'm gonna check play and flow, see what the preflop aggressor does. The under the gun player decides to bet $110. I think you would do this with ace king, ace queen, ace jack, all those. As he has a very, very wide range, I think he could also have like maybe ace 8, something like that. So we're definitely gonna call this one, especially because we can bink our 6 and double block the top end of the straight. So I'm the only caller. So we're heads up to a turn card, which is the Queen of Hearts. When I checked my opponent, he checks it back, which I'm kind of surprised about. Don't really know how you could bet the flop and not continue on that turn unless you had like maybe ace 8, maybe pocket 10s, pocket jacks, something like that. Either way, we're hoping to get the showdown cheaply. When the river is the 9 of clubs, I'm preparing to snap call this opponent if he throws out anything in the range of $200 to $300. However, he goes all in. I'm very surprised to see that. Like, I'm shocked. At this point, I'm somewhat mad at myself for showing the exact hand before this, how big of folds I'm willing to make to big bets. So that crosses my mind as well. So don't show your cards, everyone. Opponents can punish you. Now it's time to decide if I think I'm good here versus a standard 3-betting range. Standard 3-betting range, I guess he could have ace king, ace queen, aces, kings, jacks, 10s turned into bluffs. Pocket queens available too. Maybe he c-bets, turns top set, becomes tricky on the turn, and goes for his value on the river. I think that's possible. The 4-liner is kind of interesting. Like, how many 6s could he ever have here? I think it's more likely that he has a 6 than he has anything else, partially because I block most of the hands that I hope he could be bluffing with. Like, from the flop onward, the hands that I could beat are like 9-7, 8-7, 9-10. Like, those are the hands that he may play this way bluffing, but I double block them, so he doesn't really have a balanced bluffing range. It's really comprised of just aces or kings, whereas queens and some random 6 are actually possible as well. So I think for a pretty long time before I make a semi-nitty fold of my pocket 9s, this particular opponent is very happy to show me bluffs when he can get them through on me. So the fact that he doesn't show his cards gives me some confidence that he had. The most likely hand I really think he has is pocket queens. A final hand of note. With 3 limps to me, I'm in the small blind with pocket 10s. I make it $35. Well, the big blind calls and all the limpers calls, so we're going 5 ways to a flop of 9-5-3, 2 clubs. With a flush draw out there and somehow having an overpair, we're going to size up on this one. No reason to bet small here because both a club draw can call me as well as random 9s, which I do not block. So anyone who has like 9-10, 8-9, something like that, would be happy to call a bigger size bet as they have top pair. So I bet $110. The big blind calls and everyone else folds. When the turn is the 5 of hearts, I really don't like that card. I've seen this opponent peel many times with middle pair. In the first hand of the video, he peeled with middle pair and turned 2 pair to almost win against me. So he could easily have a 5 here. I check to my opponent, trying to get the showdown as cheap as possible. He checks it back. I'm very happy to see that. And the river is the 10 of clubs. What a beautiful card.
But I'm not gonna do that. That's it.
Not only because it gives me a full house, but it does complete the flush draw. So if my opponent had some kind of clubs, he'll easily pay off a bet. If he has some kind of 5, he'll easily pay off a bet. If he has a 9, it might be a little harder since there's an overcard and the flush draw got there, but we gotta bet a decent size to try to get paid when we get a fun run out like this one. We bet $250, and my opponent thinks for a little bit before calling. As I have to show first, I will never know what he had in this hand. Either way, we are into the game for $800, out of the game for $1976, which is a profit of $1,176. We're there for only 5 hours, kind of a short session, which equates to $235 an hour or 47 big blinds an hour. Well, if you watched all the way to this point, thank you. I appreciate it. Please consider subscribing, and there will be more to come next week. Thank you.